A very short reflection to welcome you to the second part of this year. It is 1st of July, and I want to welcome you with a verse or a chapter in the Bible, one of the chapters that I love so much, Psalm 91. He who sits in the shelter of the Most High. He who sits in the shelter of the Most High. Do you sit in the shelter of the Most High? Inonando onyemowa. Please, if you have not been sitting in that shelter, actually it's His grace that allows us to sit in His shelter. He who sits in the shelter of the Most High. But it's not just sitting. You sit and you've got to acknowledge that it is in the shelter of the Most High you sit. Because the next line says, and says to Yahweh, my refuge, my fortress, my God in whom I trust. So sitting in the shelter of the Most High and then saying to God, my refuge, my stronghold, my fortress, my God, in you I trust. If you read down that chapter of the Bible, Psalm 91, make it a daily reading. Maybe this second part of the year, you can take a resolution to make Psalm 91 your daily prayer. He who sits in the shelter of the Most High, and spend your nights in the shelter of Shaddai. So your day, your night is spent in Him. And then the last part, or the last verse of the Bible, I hold on to that so much. The promise of God to all of us. It says, since He clings to me, since He sits in the shelter, in my shelter, I will rescue Him. I'll raise Him high, since He acknowledges my name. Remember, the first part of it says, you're sitting in the shelter of the Most High, and you are acknowledging that He is your fortress, your refuge, your God. He is my fortress, my refuge, my God, in whom I trust. And now the Lord promises, since He clings to me, since He acknowledges me, I will rescue Him. I will raise Him high. He calls to me, that is the Lord saying, I will answer. He calls to me, I will answer. In distress, I am at His side. So the Lord acknowledges that sometimes in this life is not heaven, where we have everything perfect. This life is earth. So there is no perfection in this life. So the Lord acknowledges that we may be in distress, but He said, I am at His side. I am at her side. He will be at your side. He is at my side. And He says again, I will rescue him and bring him on. Remember, this is conditional. Since He sits in my shelter, since He acknowledges my name. So that call to sit in God's shelter, that call to acknowledge God as our refuge, our God, our Savior, in whom we trust, brings to us so much beautiful packages from God.